I would now like to request our guest of honor, Mr. Amit Marwa, CTO India Region at Nokia Networks, to please come up on stage. With over 22 years of professional experience in technology, pre-sales and business management positions, Sir has an in-depth understanding of the Indian telecommunication market. Sir has held various roles in organizations like Lucent Technologies, where he spent more than 7 years in roles from operations to technology pre-sales. Sir moved to Motorola as a senior manager in the engineering and sales team, joined Nokia as network solution manager, and then got promoted to the head of core networks for India. Sir was also the director for core networks at Huawei Technologies, and later he joined NSN in 2011, where he was engaged in new business acquisition. Sir's current role in NSN include technology positing and value-based augmentation that have both internal and interfacing roles, focusing on topics such as network security, technology evolution, standardization, spectrum management, and other 3GPP linked matters. We welcome you, sir, to SITM. May I request, sir, to kindly preside over the session and share his views on the topic.
Professor Patil, Professor Avinash, dignitaries and delegates who are present here, faculty members, and above all, the students of this college and many others. I am delighted to be here to share my views with you, and in the next half an hour, I'll hope I will not bore you too much. I will try to do justice to this half an hour, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the session. I happened to reach the campus last night and opted to stay in the campus itself. And to my delight, I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, went for a jog in the campus. And while I was exploring the whole campus, I was thinking only one thing: why didn't I get my family here? It would have been a vacation, huh? It would have it's like a resort, and I was thinking that, it's such a brilliant campus. My compliments, by far one of the best campuses I have seen in India, and really, really appreciate and and of course, with the professionalism that I've seen in the last 2 days, and even before that when I was interacting with some of the students, I'm really, really impressed. Thank you very much. You know what, I will start with a little story. And the story is about the company I work for. And why I'm giving this story is not because I'm here to promote or market Nokia in a large way and tell you, what we do and how we are good. But it's more about trying to give you a perspective about a company who has gone through 150 years of history. And there's a lot of learning in the journey that the company has gone through. So I'll share that in a little bit of a perspective with you. So in the year 1965, on the southwest of a small country compared to Indian standards, Finland, there was a river, there is still a river, which is called Nokia Vitra River. And on the bank of this river, a small wood pulp paper manufacturing unit was set up with a very, very humble start. That was the beginning of Nokia. And, what we, starting from that is where we reach today. And I will give you a little bit of a history around how we have achieved this 150 years and what we have done in these 150 years, and how we can learn from the history of Nokia of 150 years in the days to come. So, like I said, 1965, the company saw a beginning. It has gone through various journeys, and the learning is it has renewed, rebuilt, rethought about what it needs to do, a number of times. And some of you probably don't even, might have read this in some history books, but it started with paper mills. Nokia produced cables. It then produced paper products. It even produced tires. In fact, in paper products, it produced toilet paper. Rubber boots, consumer industrial electronics, plastics, chemicals, and there are probably more which I also don't remember. So that's been the journey of this company in which how we have, kind of the company has reinvented itself. And in the 1990s, of course, as we all know, the company decided to get into connectivity and decided to get into mobile devices. And then it's history. We all know Nokia devices. In India, when I was there, when the device part was part of Nokia, we were ruling with almost an 80% market share in the entire handset business. We were the #1 brand for years to come. And still the brand has a lot of value. But then in the journey, at some point of time, you have to take some harsh decisions. And in April 2014, one such decision was taken in the history of Nokia, where we decided to sell the devices business to Microsoft. Yes, I mean, there are thesis, analysis that can be done on what went wrong, why it went wrong, why did we sell, was it the right time to sell, etc., etc. And I'm not getting into all that. But the point is that at some point of time, in all our lives, we have to take hard decisions and move on. And that's how this company believes, and that's how the people of this company, that's the process, the thing we believe in. So now we are left with Nokia Networks. We have a portion of business which is called HARE Maps, which also we have now recently announced that we will be selling off to a consortium of car manufacturers, including BMW, Audi, Mercedes. So they formed a consortium and they're going to buy the maps business from us. And then we have a technology business which deals with the IPRs. So the company has been performing extremely well for the last couple of years. Networks is by far our large business. And in April 2015, another very bold decision was taken. The decision was that we need to now look at the next step. And the company announced that they will acquire another big giant in the telecommunication industry, which is Alcatel-Lucent. This acquisition has still not happened. It's something in the works to happen, but the new reinvented Nokia would be much larger, which would be much stronger, with a much stronger portfolio, capabilities related to innovation, customer reach, etc., are the reasons. And we think this is the right time to do this decision. Also, because this whole connectivity world from conventional telecommunication is seeing a paradigm shift. So this is the right time to look at the future. And now I will look at or give you a little bit of a glimpse of what the future brings in for us. This is a picture of a very simple picture. On the left side, if you see the y-axis, when internet or connectivity started, we were talking about connecting humans. In this entire value chain and moving on, now we are talking about connecting humans plus things and everywhere. So there is a huge paradigm shift of how the telecom is going to play a role in the future. We started with fixed phones. Having a phone, even a fixed phone at some point of time was a thing of luxury. We had mobile phones, which also became a pride for some people. Today, in the world, we have 6 billion connected mobile phones. 7 billion population of the world, 6 billion connected on mobile telephony. Huge leaps have happened. But there's lots more which is going to come. And there's lots more which is on the horizon. Internet of Things, Professor Patil already alluded to that in his opening. This is a time where, when we talk about networks, we generally talk about 3GPP releases, and we talk about how telecommunication is going to move. So what is the next evolution? In my view, I have spent more than 20 years in the industry. We are sitting at a cusp of revolution. And this is the next thing that we need to look at. Going forward, beyond the Internet of Things, there is something more interesting, which is what we call the programmable world. Now, what is the difference between an Internet of Things connecting, our estimate actually is by 2025, there will be 50 billion connected sensors in this world, which means that every individual will approximately have at least 10 devices which will be touching their lives at some point of time. So huge revolution to happen. And like I was saying, from Internet of Things, when we move to the programmable world, what is changing is that we are going to allow people to interpret and use data rather than just capture it. So, data is available, we get data, but getting intelligence into the system in order to use the data in the way I want to use it is what is the programmable world. And with this, I would like to play audio visual, which will give you a perspective of how we look at the future. Can we have the AV, please?
Years ago, here in Finland, a group of businesses joined together on the banks of the Nokian Virta River to explore the possibilities of the new industrial age. They called this new enterprise Nokia. Questioning the world around them, their appetite for change drove them to find new and better ways to do things. Using water, a powerful source of energy to help businesses become more efficient. Trees, creating pulp for paper so people could communicate by post. Rubber, protection for feet, protection on icy roads. And cable, to communicate across long distance and in times of urgency. So where to next? By the 1960s, Nokia was exploring the world of electronics. New times meant new challenges. People's lives were changing fast. So Nokia focused on telecommunications. Nokia. During the 80s and 90s, Nokia was asking the questions and finding the answers that would make the dream of the mobile phone a reality.
In a truly global market, the need to be in touch has never been more important.
Creating devices and products that were well designed, easy to use, phones that people loved. By 2005, Nokia had sold its billionth phone. We've never stood still. The world has changed, and so have we, but our DNA has remained the same. Today, we work with our partners and customers to enable extraordinary experiences in people's lives every day. Location services to help people find their way around. Network technologies to make sharing fast and fun. Innovative solutions to help people learn and explore. So what does the future look like? Soon, New technologies will be all around us. Predictive, responsive technologies. You won't be a passenger on someone else's network. You'll be at the center of your own. Vehicles that warn you of accidents ahead. Driverless cars that park themselves. We're thinking about what technology really means for people. For some, this new world where everything and everybody are connected is difficult. Fear of intrusion. Technologies that seem hard to understand or control. The complexity of choice. It can be challenging. For some, overwhelming. You see, at Nokia, we believe technology should look and feel invisible. We're reimagining a world where it works for us discreetly yet magically in the background, enriching our lives. We're excited by where the future will lead us, but we mustn't stop challenging, probing, asking questions. The world doesn't need technology simply for technology's sake. It must serve mankind, not the other way around. That's why our focus is and always has been on people. Although what we do changes, why we do it doesn't. It's why we exist, to expand the human possibilities of technology, to help people thrive. Happy birthday!
So why this happy birthday came? Because this year, in May, we had 150 years for Nokia. The invisible technology, and that was the starting of how I started my presentation. Enabling the human possibilities. And I say human infinite possibilities. And I'll give you some very basic examples of how it can change the world, or how these human possibilities. Clean water. If you look at the average clean water resources or resources of water, about 20% of the water that is available for use as clean water is wasted. If you look at a single city, Beijing, Beijing consumes approximately 950 billion gallons of water a year. If 20% of this, which is 190 billion gallons, can be saved, or even partly saved, it can supply water to a small country like Finland for 2 years. This is how the human possibilities get enabled. Sensors in cars, driverless cars. There are 1.3 million people who die of road accidents in a single year, which is approximately 3,200 people every day. If we can enable technology to even prevent partly this, this is how we enable the human possibilities. We not only change lives, we save lives. Healthcare. Right now, very, very inconsistent, high cost, inefficient. Think of a scenario where there could be healthcare monitoring devices at a reasonably low price, which connect to the cloud and are monitoring your regular health, feeding it to the cloud. So when we talk about predictive technology, So before you have a problem, you already know that you're going to have a problem. Again, you're able to save lives. So these are very few of the examples, but there can be millions more of how human possibilities can get enabled. And because I come from the technology background, I always like to kind of dive into the technology aspect of it, and the next few slides will touch upon that a little bit. In order to do what we are talking about, this huge change in terms of how connectivity from people needs to go to people plus things, there is an evolution which is happening. A part of it has already happened. So we are moving from a phase of connectivity to engagement. I think we are already there in that phase of engagement, and we need to move to that transformation phase, where connectivity will play a role in the programmable world. And all these things we talk about, smart apps, smart cities, digitalization, enabling human, connected cars, driverless cars, etc., will all be a reality. And in order to have this reality going through, right now we use data, as I said, we are slaves. We just keep downloading data. But going forward, the data available will be so intelligent that we will pick and choose as to what we want. And that will be enabled by future technologies. 4G is already here in India. It's well entrenched in many other parts of the world. And then 5G is coming. And this whole cycle is having a paradigm shift. So I'll give you an example. To get the first billion subscribers on a 2G network, first billion subscribers, the world took about 12 years. To get the first billion subscribers on a 3G network, the world took about 11 years. Today, there are close to about 350 to 400 million 4G subscribers already in the network. And to get to that 1 billion, we probably will take 6 or 7 years. So the cycles are getting shorter. And when 5G enables, probably this will be even better. What is happening also is that data is becoming extremely relevant. And data is becoming relevant because of multiple reasons. I'll give you one simple example. When iPhone was launched in 2007, you had the iPhone 3 or whatever that was. In 2011, Apple decided to have an iPhone with Retina display. The Retina display iPhone, the pictures that it captures, the video that it captures, are twice as much as HD video quality. So there's so much pressure that these devices will bring into the network in terms of how much data needs to go into the network, that the time is not far when 3D cameras will become a reality. And they are already becoming. They might become a reality. In fact, I will encourage you to go to the Nokia site and see a very innovative device which has not gone commercial, but its prototypes have been launched, which is called OZO, O-Z-O. This is the first virtual reality camera. And if you see the videos of that, it's really brilliant. It's a small piece of machine which has got 8 cameras, and it is a single device. Otherwise, if you need to capture a 3-dimensional virtual video, you need like a full auditorium with cameras, probably 16 cameras around, and an audio-visual recording system. So it's been already compressed to maybe a size of a cricket ball with 8 cameras and the recording facilities inside it. And the time will not be far when probably things like this will be on the phone. But what it does is, it puts a lot of pressure on the amount of data that gets consumed on the network. And here, what we've done is a simulation of how data we expect getting consumed over the next 10 years or so. So if you look at the last 3 years or 4 years, on an average, in any mobile network in any country, the amount of data that is getting consumed is doubling every year on year. So in year 1, if you consume X, year 2 is 2X, and so on. If this continues, and there are these 3 simulations, and of course, on the top you see here, these are the drivers. New technology is coming, Smartphones, like we said, video becoming very important, apps, bandwidth hungry, gaming, and of course new subscriber addition. All these contribute to this increase in data. But if you do just 3 plots, and very simple 3 plots, that if we assume that data grows by not 100%, but 75% year on year, and the second one is 50% on year, and the third one is 25% year on year, then from 2010 to 2020, the networks will need to support 1,000 times more data in a 75% year-on-year growth assumption. We'll have to support 500 times in 50% case and 100 times in the 25% case. And these are things we cannot shy away from. This is something which is a reality. This is something which is going to happen. It has to happen. How do we deal with this? How do the networks deal with this? And that is the big question. I'll give you also a glimpse of not taking all the global cues, but actually giving you a realistic figure or approach of how data is growing in India. And it's no different from the world. So we run managed services in large operators in India, and we have a lot of visibility of what's happening on the networks. So we said, why not use this visibility and create our own reports as to say, actually, is data growing in India? And it was not a surprise to us, but it was a surprise to a lot of other people, that the growth of data in India year on year is also following the global trends. If you see 86% from this year to this year, 75% this year to this year. If you look at only 3G, 115 or 114% growth in 3G data alone. Today, the amount of data that is consumed on 3G networks alone, and we say 3G is not good, it's still not penetrated, there's a long way to go, etc., is 50% or 60%, 55% of the total data that is consumed in mobile networks today. So the point here is that India is hungry for data, and this hunger is going to grow. It's going to get enabled with newer technologies, but it's a reality. Device penetrations increasing very, very fast. Yes, in LTE, because the network launches have not happened, it's still maybe 6 million or 1% device penetration, but 3G is growing extremely fast, approximately 18 to 20% penetration of 3G devices. About 130 to 150 million 3G devices on the network today, out of whatever, 600, 700, 800 million devices that we have. So, and this is changing very, very fast. So data is going to be important, or we can't shy away from it. What does this do? It puts a lot of pressure. It puts pressure on the operators, it puts pressure on the entire ecosystem. For doing this 1,000 times increase in data in the next 10 years or so, if we have a approach, or the analysis we have is that you would need 10 times more base stations. So there's a philosophy that this 1000x can only be achieved by something which is called 10 cross 10 cross 10. 10 times more base stations, 10 times more spectrum, and 10 times more efficiency in the network. Obviously, there is no scope to grow 10 times more base stations. You will never be able to get site candidates or towers to do that. 10 times more spectrum is not available in the market. I mean, airways are not available like that. Efficiencies still we can deal with, by coming out with newer technologies. So so this is a big challenge for operators right now, as to how do we mitigate these challenges. Services are becoming, so, when we talk about 2G, we used to talk about 50 millisecond latency. Latency is the time difference between the signal reaching you or, you're getting connected. 3G came, we started talking about 20 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds. 4G came, we are talking about 10 milliseconds. But 10 milliseconds is not good enough. If you have a car which has got sensors and it's driving, 10 milliseconds makes all the difference for an accident to happen or not happen. So we need to get to a virtual zero latency. That's the challenge. Networks getting complex. 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G coming, Wi-Fi, so many access technologies, small cells, big cells, macros, very, very complex. energy. 85% of the energy, which is actually used by the telecom networks, is not converted into revenue. That means it's wasted. It needs to do cooling, it needs to do air conditioning, it needs to do many other things, but it's not usable energy. We can't afford to do that if we have to add 10 times more sites. So we need to think and innovate how we were going to deal with this. Flexibility in the network, cloud. We have been talking about it. You all probably read it and maybe study it as a topic also. Brings a lot of efficiency. Everybody is looking for that in the future. And big data. I think this was already discussed in the few sessions before. Analytics, intelligence in the networks is going to be the key. Customer experience will be the key. What customer demands and what you are going to be able to give to him will be the key to be able to monetize data in the future. And what in Nokia we did was, we created something which is called Vision 2020. Our Vision 2020 of how we are going to deal with these challenges of the operators. And we said that to do this 1,000 times more capacity, we need to add speed and volume. One thing is we need to quickly evolve to higher technologies, from LTE to LTE Advanced. And LTE Advanced is about things like carrier aggregation, where what you are doing is, you have 5 megahertz here, you have 5 megahertz here. You can use them independently and they have a certain limit of how much capacity and speed they can give, but can you combine these together to bring that efficiency in the spectrum? So those are topics. Going forward, 5G. In 5G, what can happen is that there are these spectrum available in sub-gigahertz, which nobody ever thought will be used for mobility. I mean, nobody even dreamt that can be used for mobile, because what happens when you go beyond 3 gigahertz of spectrum, which is, less than 3 gigahertz is what is used by mobile industry today worldwide. If you go beyond that 3 gigahertz, the spectrum becomes so sharp and the connectivity becomes so sharp, it's like a laser. It's like a point-to-point laser connectivity. So can you do this in a large network? Maybe not, but then 5G has already started thinking about it. They're talking about one antenna having 64 by 64 antenna arrays in which there will be many, 64 cross 64 small antennas into one single antenna. And each of those small antennas will be talking to individual subscribers. And then we have to deal how these subscribers will move around in the network and so on and so forth. So these are things in the future that are happening, and we are thinking in terms of how we are going to deal with the revolution. From a latency perspective, as I said, 4G to 4G Advanced, even the technologies which are coming in the future are taking this into account in a very, very significant way. Self-awareness of the network, there is something which is called predictive analytics. So today we have solutions, and I'm not talking about only us, I'm saying the industry has solutions, where 24 hours before a BTS or an outage is going to happen, we, on a very more or less accurate way, can predict that this BTS is going to. And how are we going to do that? Big data. We know that when the BTS outage happened, in the networks in the last, let's say, 1 year or so, what were the KPIs? What were the things that in the network started? So it's like an ECG. You get an ECG of the heart, and looking at the ECG, the doctor says that you are going to get a heart attack. So what we try to do is take an ECG of the KPIs of the network and say that, okay, this thing was going wrong before this outage. If this thing is going wrong again, there is a potential chance that this site will go down, or there will be an outage, or there will be some problem. Can we fix it before? So self-healing, self-optimizing networks, those things are happening. Energy consumption, a lot of effort is going on in that. When we talk about 5G, we are talking about Internet of Things, and we are talking about battery lives going up to 10 years. If you have an IoT device, you cannot afford to change batteries in that every 6 months or every 1 year also. You need batteries to evolve so they can support for 10 years battery life. Even on the equipment that goes in the network, it's getting smaller and smaller. Earlier we used to have air conditioning. We stopped air conditioning. So now none of the sites, or very few sites, go with air conditioning. We had fan cooling. We are getting rid of fan cooling also because fan consumes electricity. So it's natural cooling. So a lot of things happening in terms of innovation, plus the semiconductors itself are evolving to become much more efficient from energy point of view. Telco cloud, another very, very big topic, but becoming very, very relevant. Today, if you have I'm sure you understand networks, and some of you coming from engineering background. So there's the MSC, and there's the HLR, those pieces in the network, which are required, and right now they're put on every circle or every district. Why? Can we consolidate that into a single for the entire India operation? Bring in all those efficiencies, plus you don't need to waste capacities. So if you put a node here, you already build a 30% headroom here, and you build this 30% headroom everywhere, so you're wasting all this capacity. Can you bring it all together and build only 130% headroom and cloudify it? Those are things which are very relevant and becoming in the future. And the customer experience, personalizing, big data analytics is the last stop. And all this is taking us to the next evolution, of course, 4G, and then going beyond 5G. And like in 5G, I look at it as this pyramid or this triangle with 3 sharp corners. What is the next Internet of Things going to demand from the networks? It is going to demand massive broadband. We would need peak rates of 10 Gbps, unheard of. But 5G is looking at, so these are key requirements in 5G as the standardization of 5G is happening today. Can we support 10 Gbps throughput? Can we support 100 Mbps average? Good put means throughput average. Can we support 10 years of battery life? So massive broadband, machine to machine or IoT, which requires the devices to be cost, low power, and having low cost with long battery life. And the other side is the latency. We need to get to a lower latency. So this is the concept, or this is the vision of how 5G is evolving in the future. And all this, our vision is, leads to the future where we say that Gbps of personalized data per user, per day, in a profitable and secure manner is the vision that we have set on ourselves as vendors to deliver in the future. And a very important point here is profitable, because like Ma'am Vijay Lakshmi also alluded, if you don't make money, it doesn't make sense. So all this needs to be done in a profitable way. Plus, it needs to be done securely. Because what's happening is questions coming in our minds all the time. And some of these questions, is privacy getting endangered? Yes, no? Is society being divided by technology? Yes. Is really a digital life better? Is our humanity being compromised? So these are questions, and they're very relevant questions. So what we did was, we have something which is going as a program, and you are all welcome to contribute to this program, which is called Go to Nokia site, go to nokia.com. You will find a hashtag of Make Tech Human, Make Technology Human. There are scientists, everybody's participating in it, in which you can just go blog, give your suggestions, give your solutions, and become a part of this whole program of helping us understand that what is required, what do the end users feel about all these topics, and how we need to deal with it. So please encourage you to have a look at some of these stuff and participate in this. This program is going on right now. The other thing is that I open a challenge to you, because you come from the academia, all intelligent brains. This is innovation challenges that we keep running, and this is, I think, the third one that we are running. This one is around IoT. So it's a program in which you can go to Nokia site, you can get logged on to the innovation challenge portal, you can give your suggestions, you can give your solutions. There will be a jury which will select the top solutions. People who are selected will be invited to our headquarters, and we have our own VC funding also. It is possible if some people are selected, the IPR and the proprietary of the knowledge and what you have created remains with you, but we will help productize that or take it to the next level. So again, encourage you to please participate in all these endeavors. So that's the last slide that I had. As I said, please go ahead and welcome to give suggestions in whatever you can contribute to the industry, to what's happening in the future, and be open. You need to challenge yourself. And remember one thing. We talk about IoT, we talk about technology, we talk about base stations, we talk about networks. But remember one thing. Machines are for answers. Humans are for questions. So ask questions. Ask questions. Ask yourself and innovate. So that's the conclusion of what I had to present. Capture this digital movement and try to make this world a better place to live. With that, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm very impressed and really, really elated to be part of it. Really, really, thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you, sir, for sharing with us your experiences and invites. I now invite my colleague to felicitate sir with a memento as a token of our gratitude.
Please.
Thank you, sir.